Give me your skeins, your cakes, your huddled yarns yearning to breathe free, the wistful remnants of your project bee. I'll guide you through with visions bright and clear, ideas to knit from far or near. Join me for a new series where I take photo submissions of yarn from your stash that you simply don't know what to do with, and I share with you some ideas of some things that might get you inspired. Right now on this week's Midweek Ramble. Hello, 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 and welcome to the Wool Needles Hands Midweek Ramble. My name is Taylor, and I will be your host. This is a new series that I'm starting for the Midweek Ramble segment, and it was actually an idea submitted to me over on the tip line from a lovely viewer. Essentially, what she suggested was a series where viewers can send in photo submissions of yarns, skeins, cakes, whatever, in their stash that they simply don't know what to do with, that have been languishing for a long time, and they're kind of at a loss. And then I would do the legwork to find some patterns that could hopefully inspire them to get busy and use up that gorgeous yarn sitting around in their stash. We're calling this new series, What Should I Make With This? Now, in the newsletter where I let everybody know that this was going to be a new series and I asked for submissions, I did mention that this is open to both crochet and knitting. Just let me know in the email what it is that you prefer to do, and I will seek out patterns on Ravelry or wherever that I think would work out really well for the yarn that you submit to me. Now, bear in mind, I am a knitter through and through with very little experience crocheting. However, I would love to do the legwork to find some inspiration for those of you that would like to submit photos. So if you would like to participate in this new series, which will be semi-regular, you can email me at woolneedleshands@gmail.com, and in the subject line, put "What should I make with this?" Provide me with the yarn photographs and the amounts that you have that you would like to use, your preferred craft, and if you feel comfortable, your size, so that I can use that to help determine which projects would work for you. And then I will add you to my queue of folks that I choose from when I produce these videos. I'm super excited about this. This first one that I put together was a lot of fun, and I'm ready to dive right in. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the way that these videos are going to work is I'm going to share with you one submission, and we're going to choose 4 or 5 patterns that could work for that submission. And today's submission was sent in by Adele, and she provided me with 4 skeins. She didn't physically provide me with the yarn, but with photos of the actual yarn, 4 skeins of BC Garn Bio Balance, 55% pure organic wool, and 45% pure organic cotton. It's fingering weight 50 grams per skein, and it is 225 meters / 246 yards per skein. She bought them together, but they don't need to be used together. Okay, so when I curated some ideas for these skeins of yarn, I wanted to try and focus on using them together, because I feel like if you can use them together, if you purchase them together, maybe even with the slight inclination to use them together, if you can use them together, it's a great way to take care of that section of your stash all in one fell swoop. And so I kind of focused on that when I curated these ideas for that yarn. You can see here the colors of this, the beautiful colors, such a great color scheme. The blue, the green, that rusty color, and the gray, a great 4-color palette of warm and cool. There's 1 warm, 3 cool, and I love that. And they're really muted, which has a lot to do with the cotton content in there. It's going to mute the colors down just a little bit. And I feel like all 4 of these together are really earthy, but also kind of nautical in a way. I don't know. I really love it. It's got like a modern nautical vibe, but it also like a real earthy vibe as well. It's really beautiful yarn, and it's very inspiring for me. So I think it's absolutely beautiful. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the first pattern I've selected to help bust this portion of Adele's stash. And this first one is called A Study in Texture by Joji Locatelli. This shawl is gorgeous. And I will tell you right now, the patterns I have for you today are kind of shawl heavy, but they're beautiful. And this one in particular, I absolutely love. Now, I want to take a look at my notes. I did mention here that this particular pattern, it says one of the colors in this design calls for 300 yards, and Adele has about 250 yards, 246 yards per skein. So one color does call for 300 yards. However, the overall yardage is no more than 700 yards, and Adele has 4 times 246. I took note of this when I actually curated this, but because it's, I'm just 246 times 4, 984 total yards. So the only thing about A Study in Texture by Joji Locatelli, which is so gorgeous, is that you might need to kind of redistribute the color a little bit, since one of the colors calls for more than Adele has in any one skein. But honestly, it shouldn't matter too much. It's absolutely sensational. I think that this design is so unique looking in that really pretty kind of, you get the ribbing, not the ribbing, you get the striping, and then you get this really interesting kind of wide set ribbing. And then I don't know what's going down on the bottom, if that's slipped stitches in there. It's kind of got like a spider web look to it. It's so beautiful. And the name of this fits it perfectly, A Study in Texture. Ugh, it's absolutely gorgeous. So what I imagine if I look at this, I notice that you have that one small triangle at the top of gray, and then you have the striping happening, and then a yellow color. You could just very easily do fewer stripes or do less of that dark gray color at the top. You could really work things around here to suit the yarn that you have, but this is really gorgeous. So I wanted to include this here. It's called A Study in Texture. It is a fingering weight pattern. It requires no more than 700 yards. It's a $6 pattern. It's by the lovely Joji Locatelli, and it's a great way to bust 4 skeins and 4 different colors of yarn from your stash. So that is my first idea for Adele's yarn, and I think it would be beautiful in those colors. My goodness. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, we're going into garment territory here, and this next one is one I've seen kind of recently. It's like been like on my radar lately, and this is the Dingley Dell pattern by Isabel Kramer. It's a lovely V-neck t-shirt pattern, a classic V-neck t-shirt. It has kind of like a sporty striped ribbing in the V-neck, and I think it's so nice. And then it's got really wide set stripes over the entire shirt. It says that the first 3 sizes could be, well, I took note of this. I don't know the size information for Adele, but I mentioned here that the first 3 sizes of this pattern could be knit with the yardage that she has. And then if she were any larger than that, you would need some more yarn. So I'm providing this as a suggestion, but I am completely aware that this may not work for her given her yardage and depending on her size and her preferences. But should it work, it is a really fun t-shirt design, and I love the V-neck look of it. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look a little bit closer here. Okay, so it is €6.50 for this pattern, and it has really beautiful stripes. And the reason why this kind of stuck out to me was because it was striped, but Isabel Kramer only uses 2 colors here. But when I look at some of the samples, I see lots of fun kind of iterations of color. I see multiple colors. I see 2 main colors and then like some rainbowing going on at the bottom. You could have a lot of fun with this, with striping and with multiple colors. And because it's a t-shirt, it's a summery type garment, which is great for that, merino and cotton content. And I love that. And actually, I don't even know, I think the yarn did not necessarily specify that it's merino. It just says pure organic wool. Okay, it doesn't matter, but half wool essentially and half organic cotton. Great for a summertime garment. And I love this overall design. So that is the Dingley Dell by Isabel Kramer. Lovely V-neck tee. It may work in terms of yardage. It may not. Something to think about down the road. Or I know that this is like maybe not the best suggestion because you're trying to get rid of yarn from your stash, but if you like this idea and maybe buying a few additional skeins of that yarn means that you will use all of that yarn from your stash, I don't know, you kind of get what I'm saying. So I love this for that yarn, wanted to mention it. Let's go to the next one. All right, this next pattern is called the Moonlight Wrap by Pearl Soho. However, this design comes in 2 sizes. It has a wrap size and a scarf size. And the one that I'm going for here is the scarf version. I noted that the scarf version of this calls for 848 yards, and one of the colors used calls for 416 yards. However, if you redistribute the colors, you can still achieve a really gorgeous design. So this will also require a little bit of redistribution of the colors, which honestly is fun to kind of figure out how you're going to do that, and it doesn't detract from the design at all, especially considering we have such a pretty array of colors here. However, Adele has enough for the scarf version and not quite enough for the wrap version. But let's go ahead and take a look at this. It's beautiful. It's just a really wide scarf that I think is super flattering with any outfit. It doesn't have a lot of embellishment other than the very beautiful and subtle stitch design. It looks to me like it's working, I want to say that that is mosaic knitting. I mean, or what is that exactly? I don't know. It looks like there's some kind of color work going on there that I'm not exactly sure what that is. I feel like it could be a mosaic type knitting. I don't know, but it's absolutely gorgeous. It's just your classic wrap style scarf, and I think it's absolutely lovely. In fact, the yarn that is used for this is the 50% wool, 35% alpaca, 15% linen quill yarn. And Adele's yarn is essentially half and half wool and cotton. But I think that those fiber contents really would kind of be good for substituting the linen quill here. And I think in the 4 colors that she has, this would be a really lovely design. So pretty and very subtle. The color changes and the texture. I love this. A real nice staple scarf wrap option. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Okay, this one, I couldn't help myself. If you have littles in your family, Adele, if you happen to be watching, this is great for younger children. So I pulled this one because most of the sizes offered here could be knit with what Adele has. I said this is great if there are littles in your family. Each stripe uses no more than 200 yards and the whole garment uses no more than 919 yards for the largest size. So she could essentially knit the largest size of this for a young person in her family and use up all of her yarn, and it's got really wide stripes and it's so lovely. And this is called the Satsuki pattern by Marianne Mounier, or I think it's Mounier. Okay, we'll go with that. But this is it. It's adorable. Look at these really wide stripes. Look at that adorable rolled neckline happening there. Lovely and simple. And for those of you that have been watching, if you look closely right here at the shoulder of this sweater, it has a little bit of a drop shoulder vibe to it. This is that contiguous method where they are, well, I should say, yeah, it's the contiguous method by Susie Myers, where she kind of creates almost like raglan seams around the shoulder here to give a little bit of a faux drop shoulder look. That's what's happening here, and I absolutely love it. And just look at how pretty it is with those stripes. Such a great classic little sweater for a little person in fingering weight yarns. The fabric is nice and light, and because Adele's yarn has such a good amount of cotton in there, it's going to feel good against their skin. And I imagine that the yarn will soften even more with washing and blocking. And I think it's great. So I really couldn't pass this up. So this is Satsuki by Marianne Mounier, and it is absolutely precious. Okay, this next one I'm crazy excited about. Now, I love the way it looks in the sample photos with the really vibrant yarn and bold contrast, but I'm imagining the same pattern with the subtlety of the muted colors in Adele's yarn. They are a really nice contrast. I wouldn't say it's a bold contrast in Adele's yarn, but there's a lovely subtlety there and just enough contrast to make it pleasing to the eye. This pattern is called the People's Shawl by Lindsay Kay, and it says it only requires 610 yards, and each color used requires no more than 200 yards, which means she would use all of her, well, she wouldn't use all of her yarn, but she would be able to fully knit this pattern as written with the yarn she has, and she would have roughly 300 yards left over. Let's go ahead and take a closer look. Okay, so Lindsay Kay, this is her design, the People's Shawl. Look at just the boldness of this design in the color here, but also in the texture. You have what looks like, I want to zoom in here, these garter stitch ridges and stockinette stitch gullies. Okay, whenever you see gorgeous designs where you have like garter stitch sections and then stockinette stitch sections, it kind of gives me this ridge and gully feel, and I love that texture. And you can see that here. You have the garter stitch ridges happening here, and then you have the stockinette stitch gullies, and I think it is just beautiful. And in these colors here, it's fabulous. But in the colors that Adele has, I think it could also just be very, very soothing and appealing and such a lovely all-season scarf and wrap, if you will. It's so beautiful. And that garter stitch like edge, I think is so pretty. So this is the People's Shawl. It's a $6 pattern. It says, my adopted city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin has had quite a spectacular city flag, look it up, since the 50s. And a 2016 redesign contest resulted in the winning Sunrise Over the Lake design by Robert Lenz, affectionately dubbed the People's Flag. Flown and emblazoned all over the city, but not, at least at the time of this release, officially adopted by the government. This shawl is inspired by that design and celebrates my love of flags. Now I'm curious to know what that flag is. Oh, totally. So cool. I think that's awesome. Yeah, I love that. So it's the People's Shawl by Lindsay Kay. Beautiful, bold, but also would be absolutely gorgeous with Adele's 4-color palette here and in that gorgeous wool and cotton yarn. I love that. Well, there you have it, folks. 5 ideas of inspiration for Adele or anybody with similar yarn in their stash to use that might help them bust those pesky skeins they have in their stash that are beautiful but just haven't been able to provide the inspiration necessary to get the ball rolling. I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Thank you for taking the time to watch this new series we have going called What Should I Make With This? Definitely submit your photo submissions at woolneedleshands@gmail.com. I will provide a little response in the form of an emoji, a thumbs up, or a heart to let you know I received it, and then I will be pulling from those when I go to produce future videos just like this one. You guys are awesome. If you enjoyed today's video or took value at any point, please don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Definitely subscribe and click that bell icon so you can be notified anytime I upload new content, which is every Wednesday and every Sunday. And until I see you for Sunday's episode of the podcast, happy knitting, happy making, happy whatever it is that you're doing. Take care, be well, and I will see you soon. Bye.